so we're going to do a little loving kindness session today, but we're going to throw in something interesting. About midway through, I'm going to show you how to do past lives meditation. And of course, you're not going to experience any past lives, but you may get a feel for how this works. It can be a very powerful kind of meditation. It puts your mind, it kind of sends it backwards into a very deep space. But that's not going to happen immediately. Typically, what the instructions are to get your meditation going and get to a good spot, maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes of meditation so your mind is calm and things are going okay. You don't want to get too deep into your meditation because it is a contemplation type meditation. And what happens is if you get a little bit too high up into the, too out there, your thoughts disappear and you can't really consider memories. Memories don't show up. So you don't want to like sit for an hour and then do it. You want to sit for a little while and then you want to try it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take you through a little guided meditation for about 15 minutes. And I'm going to switch over and we'll just try a little bit of this past lives meditation, and I'll give you all instructions as we go. And it's quite easy. It's a little bit different. So let's So please get comfortable. Relax your body. You never want to jump into your meditation. You want to just kind of let it come to you. Many times people will sit down and they'll go, well, let's get meditating. We've got a lot of work to do. No, that really is not the way to do it. Just relax and check out what's happening in the room. What's happening in your body. What's happening in mind. If there's activity, just let it be active. Don't control it. Just like when you take boiling water off the stove and you turn the heat off, gradually all the bubbles disappear. And that's what we're doing by closing our eyes and just letting things simmer down. Now let's get a little smile on your face. It doesn't have to be big, just a little bit of a smile, and feel that smile. Feel that smile in your heart. Feel it in mind. Feel it coming from your eyes. And feel your whole body smiling. Now I want you to envision a baby just sitting on your chest, holding the baby, looking into its eyes, feeling this love, this loving kindness. The baby is completely innocent. There's just nothing but a big bunch of love there. And feel that. Notice how the feeling feels in your heart. If you notice the feeling in your heart, pay attention to that. That's what we want. Feeling in the mind, in the head, or elsewhere is okay, but really looking to deepen the feeling in the heart. Think of love. Think of loving kindness. We are doing the Brahma Viharas, which is the first one is loving kindness, metta. It's also in Sanskrit. Metta is metta, friendliness. So friendliness, loving kindness. And wish that baby some loving kindness. Reflect back. It doesn't have to be a baby. We have a nice cat here who just likes to sit on our chest, get scratched. And just feel that warm feeling. And that's it. Just let yourself be in the feeling. And give that feeling to yourself. Put yourself in this bubble of loving kindness. You deserve it. You're doing the right thing. You're doing wholesome actions. You're following the path to improve yourself. You do deserve this. Hopefully you're following precepts. You're meditating. So give this loving kindness to yourself. And just sit inside the feeling. And I want you to let that feeling to just take over. Just become loving kindness. Radiating this warm feeling. Notice everything vibrates. But smile into that vibration. Don't get lost too much in just sensation. Make sure there's a smile behind all of this. Now let's direct some of that loving kindness to everybody in the group that's online. Just put them in your bubble. Bring them into your bubble. If your mind wanders, just notice that it's gone and release that. Relax. Let that distraction be there. And as it weakens, don't pay attention to it. And come back and re-smile. Come back into your bubble of loving kindness. Now that we're in our bubble, we're going to try something new. We're going to go back into our memories. And we're going to go back hour by hour, day by day, year by year, all the way to the beginning. But it won't be perfect. It'll just be a little bit at a time. So now I want you to think about how you felt when you got up this morning. You woke up and just see that moment. Don't really get into it. Don't think about it. Just be with that vision of when you got up. And what did you do next? Think of if you had breakfast, think of that. What did you have? What were you wearing? Now go back to last night. Did you have a dream? Do you remember it? If not, just let your mind be there. Don't dredge around in it. Just put your mind to last night. That's all. And you might think of a dream you had, and that might lead to another thought of another dream, and that's good. Now I want you to think last night, before you went to bed, what did you do? Did you read? Watch something? What was it? What were you wearing at the time? Where were you? What chair were you sitting in? What did you have for dinner? Where did you eat it? What were you drinking with it? Who was with you? And just let your mind be in that space. It's almost like you just let yourself go back there. What did you do yesterday afternoon? What did you have for lunch? Where did you have it? Who was with you? What was the weather like? What did you do in the morning, yesterday morning? How were you feeling when you woke up yesterday? So sometimes you, at this point, starts to get a little murky. So you have to kind of remember what day it is. Today's Sunday. Yesterday was Saturday. So what did you do Friday? You can kind of put a framework on this, because otherwise it just all blends. Just think of anything Friday and just be there. It might generate something else. Now your mind may bring up some memories of quite long ago, and that's okay. So let them come up. And just be with those memories. Maybe it's a memory of being in high school. It's kind of like a movie screen. You kind of just look around and see what was happening at the time. One thing leads to another. You remember a teacher, then you remember some sports, then you remember something else. And if it's blank, then just redirect your mind to remember something. Just look without trying to push too hard. But once that disappears, come back more into the present and pick up where you left off. You remember what you did Thursday. Wednesday. Have another memory from your past come up that's a long time ago. Let that be there. And go in that. What was happening? What were you wearing? Who was there? See if you can bounce off that memory to another memory. After a while, your memory it improves, it gets better. At first, it's just surface memories that seem to kind of be your box full of memories that you seem to have. If somebody says, remember back when you're a child, you have certain memories that will come to the surface. But what we want to do is get a little bit more into, different memories, new ones. They're a little bit deeper. Which means you have to allow the space for those to come up. And once that's kind of run out of steam, then come back to the present and kind of try to find a memory from the, recent past, from like this week. And just start off that from there. So this meditation is part of the T-Vija. T means 3, Vija means knowledge. The T-Vija is the triple knowledge. This is the way the Buddha was enlightened. And many of the Arhats went through this process as well. We've just touched the first part. And the procedure is to actually get to the 4th jhana. And as you could read, the Buddha got to that point through the breath. And then he started to remember past lives. And when you remember past lives, it leads you to another step, which is you start to travel into other realms. And you see beings there. And you, like Moggallana, would go and ask people, how did you arrive at this heavenly realm? What action did you do? And they would tell him. Or he would be visiting the hell realms. How did you get into this terrible place? And they knew exactly what had happened. They had done something bad in their human existence. And as a result, they were there. And he traveled around finding out these things. And what happens is, in your mind, you travel to these places and you see other beings and you just know what they did, how they got there. It's kind of an intuition. So that's the second knowledge, which is the knowledge of other realms. And then the third knowledge is once you understand how beings got there, you understand how powerful karma is. Karma is everything. Any action you do creates more karma. And you understand that when you do unwholesome action, it creates karma that is unwholesome and that can take you into very bad places. And it creates suffering. And you can see how fragile everything is because you are in ignorance. You don't know that unwholesome actions lead to these places. I mean, have you ever seen them? Why would you believe in this? Many people say, no, this is nothing. The karma doesn't work. There is no fruit of action. And that's not true. So you find out that there is fruit of action. And then you see that there is this wheel continues forward, powered by karma, powered by action, and there is no end of it. The possibility of your making a misstep and falling down into the lower realms is so easy. So the mind becomes very aware of how powerful this is. And the third knowledge is the knowledge of Nibbana. The mind says, I'm done with this wheel. There's nothing good about it. It might lead to some happiness at some point, but later that happiness can disappear. And the mind just dives into Nibbana. It can be a very deep experience. There's very few people who have done this all the way. But it is a practice that can be done. And Bhante has found that the jhana practice is easier for most people. The practice of the Tivija is for people who are a little bit more sensitive to feeling. They have some sensitivity. They can feel things easier. They're not all in their mind. When you're in your mind, you're more thinking, intellectual, analyzing person. But when you're in feeling, you're into feeling, and there's emotions in there. But it tends toward giving you the ability toward more psychic things, to opening. This opens a divine eye, is what it's doing. So some people find it easy. Most people don't find it very easy. And it is advised when you do this meditation to have your mind balanced, because if you do go back into actual past lives, you may find out some things that you've done that are not good. And it may make you feel guilty and remorseful, and you have to have a balanced mind before you attempt this. You don't want to play around with this and find that it's working and then not be in a state of balance. But it can be quite interesting meditation, and develops your memory and develops some interesting deep spaces. And we'll come back to this life now. Well,
this is
welcome back.
I think it's like I can never go back to it. Like I'm stuck at like maybe my last memory, probably like 5 years of me, me playing with my mom. That's about it. I think it's something to do with your belief as well. But probably, I feel like oh, I'm the kind of person I can't really, go back. So yeah, it's like something that block and maybe don't want to go something.
Mhm.
So some time to time, like I was even thinking about, oh, maybe, like go to these hypnosis or whatever, and
Yeah.
yeah, work with that, and then see if something might there that might be useful, But
Mhm.
um, I don't
Yeah,
know.
well, Brenda McRae in Indonesia, of course, as you know, she's a hypnotherapist,
Oh,
and that's her job. And actually, she's getting quite famous. She goes on the radio and on TV and talks about regressing people back to past lives.
yeah.
And people have issues in their past lives. Maybe they killed somebody and they have a lot of guilt, or they were killed and they're stabbed and they have a pain in their side. And when she takes them back to that time, they understand that's what happened, and it disappears in this life.
Mm.
And she's quite successful in taking people back into other lives.
Yeah.
Quite
I think
interesting.
it's in the psychotherapy world. I think it's getting very, very popular.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Now I've gone to all these people who do regression, and I'm too intellectual, I guess. I don't, my mind just doesn't do it.
Doesn't okay.
Just,
I'm not the only one then.
I mean, I can't be hypnotized. And
Yes, me too.
but I learned how to hypnotize, so I could hypnotize other people. I could put my hand on their shoulder later, and they would just go. And then I'd give them something to do, and I'd do that in college. It was fun.
Oh wow.
Actually, most people can be hypnotized pretty easily.
Really?
Yeah, pretty easy. Yeah, I could probably hypnotize everybody right now. No, but it's possible. A few people. Yeah. But so that's that practice. So I guess we'll start our little formal presentation now, or not, or informal. And so let's see. I need my screen sharing.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Before we move on, can I just mention that towards the end, before the bell sound, I suddenly had a visual, a visual just for a very short while, but
Mhm.
of just like just a rural scene, like
Ah.
with huts, sort of.
Oh.
It's before that I'm like, following your guidance, but it was just like a flash, maybe for 5 seconds or 6 seconds. It was just just a rural greenish color. I can even see the color.
Mm-hmm.
Like just,
That could be one. That could
what
be
is that?
something for sure. Yeah. So just let your mind go back to that scene and just experience it a little bit more, and then you might pick up a few more things.
So when I experience it, I should go into that. I
Yeah.
should
Yeah.
go into it.
Yeah.
Wait.
Mm-hmm. See what's there. Mm-hmm. And that's how it can be. Is it's kind of dreamlike. I think Bhante said he was working with somebody here who had lots of past life recalls, even into a hell realm. And he went to Bhante and said, well, I had all these things. And Bhante said, well, you just remember past lives. And he says, well, I don't know. He's a software guy. He said, I don't know about any of that. How is that possible? Bhante said, well, it's true. It was past lives, whether you want to believe it or not. That was. Because it's not real clear. I don't know. I haven't experienced any past lives, but I do know some people who have, and some people go, yeah, that was me, or some people say, well, that might have been me. I don't know. So hard to say. No experts around here.
Yeah, this is completely different from when you say, oh, try and remember yesterday, or remember when I was a child. This is completely different. It's like just a visual. You can just see it.
Yeah. Well,
It's not thinking
right.
so much
That's right.
thinking. It suddenly appears like that it's a rural scene, in sort of like in Asia, but it's not a scene that I'm familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's not a place that is part of my memory. Yeah, I guess
Mm-hmm.
that would be right to say.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
not a place from my memory. Like before that, I'm trying to think about, oh, I was, at a certain place, right? And it's part of my memory, right? That's part of my memory.
Yeah.
But this scene that just appeared, the green scene, village scene with huts, with like tall grass, it's not part of my memory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's just something you haven't seen before.
Right.
Well, who knows? I don't know.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so let's see here. GTOG, June 27th. So we're going to talk. I just threw a few things together, kind of things I've been thinking about. And the first thing I'm going to do is ask people, what is enlightenment? What is awakening? Does anybody know? Does anybody have an answer? What do you think it is? Why are you trying to get to it? What's the benefit of it? Is it cosmic consciousness? There's a lot of people out there who are seeking enlightenment. And if you ask them what it is, a lot of times they go, well, I don't know. I haven't thought about it. It's something cosmic. It's seeing we're all one. Now, the jhana guys, it's experiencing the first jhana. I got to the first jhana and I got a lot of joy. And there is a lot of joy in the first jhana in concentration. Now, in TWIM, there's joy. It's not huge, but there's definitely joy. Some people have it more than others. But in the concentration world, because concentration is so difficult, getting to one jhana is just like, it's an endpoint. It's like, oh, I've done it. I've gotten a jhana. But even they know that there's 8 jhanas, four jhanas and 4 bases, and they've only gotten to one. But then another guy comes along and says, well, he got to the second jhana or the third jhana where there's a lot of bliss and sukha. So that's enlightenment. Now, if you go on Dharma Underground, Dharma Overground, a lot of people are enlightened there because they've had a lot of joy. So they figure, well, they're enlightened. But of course, that joy passed away and it's not there anymore. So you say, well, what happened here? Well, they had the joy and they're good. But then these people who say they're enlightened, they say, well, do you follow precepts? And they say, no, I don't need to. I'm enlightened. So enlightenment is the elimination of craving. The Buddha found that there's 4 noble truths. First noble truth is that there is suffering, and that's why we're all trying to get enlightened and awakened. And we're trying to get out of suffering. Oh, another one is psychic power. So that's enlightenment. So if you get a power of reading people's minds or materializing things, then you're enlightened. You're an arhat, whatever. So that's another definition. But the Buddha never said anything like that. he said that there's four noble truths, and the first noble truth is the truth of suffering, the truth that there is suffering, and it exists all around us, and he defined all of it, and everybody here knows all of that. But the second noble truth is, what is the cause of all this suffering? It's craving, or tanha. So, all right, so there's cravings. So that's the cause of suffering. So what is the solution? Well, the solution is eliminate the craving. It's nibbana. Ni means no, and bana means fire. So no fire in the mind. So what does that mean? So we have these minds, and they are suffering, and the mind is moving around, and it's creating all these problems. So what is the solution to that? Well, it's the elimination of craving, and there's a word that I'm looking for. So what happens when you finally pass a test at school? Let's say you've been studying for it for, months. What do you feel when you pass that test? What happens when you get paid? You've been working a long time, you have a project, and you finally get paid. What do you feel? What happens when you're speeding and the cop only gives you a warning? What do you feel? Well, the word starts with R. Anybody know what that R? What's follows the R?
Relief.
Relief. What is relief? It is a state of no craving. When you fulfill a desire, it means the desire passes away, and you feel a relief. And so the solution is not being enlightened, is not being happy all the time. It's feeling the sense of relief that the suffering has disappeared, and it's every moment. But there is no suffering in each moment. So that's just it's a little different take on enlightenment. Enlightenment says, well, we're all trying to be happy. Well, happiness is impermanent, and it comes and it goes. It's like eating some ice cream. Tastes good, but then it's gone. Or we're happy about something, and then that happiness passes away. But relief doesn't pass away, because there's nothing there to pass away. It is just relief. It is no craving. There is no desire. The desire is done. So it's kind of like, this is where we're going. We're going to the state of relief. All right, before we get to the next one, I wanted to let you know that there are some videos out there which explain the Buddhist cosmos. If some of you were here when I was talking about the planes of existence, well, there's some people that do it a lot better. And if you can see this screen here, you can see this, right, Ken? Yeah. Can you hear that? Yes?
So I'd like to travel through these beautiful and amazing realms of being. And I think if we started
Not too well, David.
this realm,
Mm-hmm.
which seems to be both apparent to the eye, ears,
universe through the five senses, and their experience is mediated by those senses and their motivations.
For example,
The other,
this is the world systems.
let me just, there are
We're down here.
incalculable numbers of worlds. They also have beings on it.
yes,
And
yes,
so it's highly populated.
yes,
It seems to be, we are now in a phase where we're allowed to contemplate that in modern astrophysics
Yes.
as well.
yes,
It used to be, no, there's nobody else in
Yeah.
the universe but us. But now
Yeah.
science is saying, well, the probabilities are very, very high.
yes.
So we're starting.
So this is Venerable Punyadhammo, and he's written a very large book about the Buddhist Cosmos, which looks like that. And you can get it on Amazon. It's about 500 pages. And it's really interesting. This is Mount Siniru, and this is us on one of these land masses on Jambudipa, and we're surrounded by a great ocean. And the how high Mount Siniru is past the moon. That's how high the mountain is. And at the very top of the Tavateams of Devas, and the Suras are at the very bottom of the ocean, and they're always fighting. Well, anyway, I don't want to get into all of that, but it's quite interesting. So if you have any interest in that, you can find out about all the realms. So I want to just get that out there. If you look up Punyadhammo on YouTube, you'll find it. And it's actually on Ajahn Sona's channel. Ajahn Sona. And they're up in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Ajahn Sona Punyadhammo. Pretty good.
It's in British Columbia.
Oh, BC? Oh, okay. Oh, it looks like Mirko's put in the links to the videos and to the ebooks. Oh man, he's good today. The skeleton is really good. And he did answer the question. Relief. Okay. All right. So let's go back to talk about something which Delson's book spurred me to think about this quite a bit. Bhava. So everybody knows the links of dependent origination. Just talking about, starting with contact, feeling, craving occurs, clinging occurs, and then habitual tendencies. So what the heck is habitual tendencies? It's kind of a mysterious type of thing. I keep trying to figure it out, and then it changes to something else. But you could also say it's emotional habitual tendencies. But bhava means sense of self. It's a sense of being. There's different kinds of bhava. Bhava is just existence in the different realms. It's existing in the formless jhanas. It's existence in the rupa jhanas. It's existence in the human realms. But the end of the dependent origination link, which we're most interested in, it is negative stuff that comes from clinging. And it consists of, it is defined as the sum total of the effects of clinging and craving, conceits and ignorance. It consists of, number one, the asavas, or taints. It consists of, number two, abhisankaras, or the fettered formations. And it also consists of fettered vijnana, or consciousness. Fettered means it's affected by craving. Sankara means thoughts or mental formations. The abhi it makes that into a fettered thought, a tainted thought. So what is this? It's how you feel and react to things. It isn't the taking of action, but what your mood is before any action. You wake up and you see it's cloudy. Maybe it's been cloudy forever. You know, it's winter. And you don't like it. And you wake up, you see the clouds. So contact was made. Cloudy visual, it arises in your mind. Then there's a painful feeling that's with that. Perception rises right after that and says cloudy. So there's this feeling of pain And then perception describes what it is and what it is like, the fact that it's painful. Perception it tells you whether things are pleasant, painful, or neutral. Neither pleasant nor painful. And in this case, it's unpleasant. And then craving comes. It says, cloudy, again, has aversion in it. Clinging is there when you start to think about the last time it was cloudy, like yesterday. Oh no, again? Then grief arises as a habitual tendency to this. Whenever it's cloudy, you always have grief. Maybe not every time, but for now, during the winter, you do. You don't like cloudy days, so this is how you react. So this is a kind of it's a feeling, it's your mood at that time. So now you get up, it's cloudy, and you don't like it, and it puts you into a bad mood. So that's your habitual tendency to be in this grief kind of not liking mood when you get up, if you don't like something. Then after that, maybe then birth of action may arise, and in many times it does. You think of something to say about it. You curse. So the the verbal formation rises into your mind, and you curse. So your habitual tendencies led you to have these feelings that were negative, and then some action arose from that, a verbal formation. Or maybe you turned on the lights, or maybe you shut the shutters, or who knows what you did. So verbal fettered formation arises. So these are the taints first. You have this taint, this craving that reacts. Then you have a formation that arises. It's really a thought. It's a verbal thought that makes you speak. And then fettered consciousness. Your day is then colored by your habitual tendencies. It's just, this is your state of being. It's not a state of happiness, not a state of joy. This is a state of ugh. So what are the other habitual tendencies? There's just a few. There's jealousy, and there's Pali terms for all of these things. Jealousy, aversion, anger, rage. So there's different levels of anger. Then there's Pali terms for all of that. There's the lust, there's a greedy mind. There's a number of things which are just coloring your mind all the time. So that's just a little thing about bhava. What the heck is bhava? Okay, so that's that. What happened to my, oh yeah.
Hey, David?
Yeah.
I have a question about that. So in the Chachaka Sutta, when they're talking about the underlying tendencies, is that equivalent to bhava? Is that what they're, so I saw you listed like lust aversion. Okay, so
yeah.
So the underlying tendencies are bhava.
Yeah, they're the taints. I mean, even in the sutta it says the taints. So for sure.
Wow. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, Geck says, what about enlightenment being realization? Well, it is realization. Looking at the chat, realization of the Four Noble Truths and the elimination of ignorance. Enlightenment it's not just one thing, but there are multiple things that are happening. You understand the links of dependent origination, and you see that there's no self. And because of that, you see that there's nobody in charge. And when there's nobody in charge and it's not you who are doing things, you don't have to worry about it. all of this anymore. You don't worry about what's coming up in your mind because you know it's not you. It's just stuff that comes up. And it's a funny thing because people don't really understand it. But when you see the links of dependent origination and you see them arising without any control, they just come up like this cloudy day, you reacted in a negative way. You didn't decide to do that. When that happens, is you understand there's nobody there, that it's just all stuff, and there's no way out of that stuff arising. But you didn't do it, so you might as well just let it be, accept it. And because you've accepted it, you no longer are fighting it, and you no longer have craving. And thus, we're back to the elimination of craving. So there's many different aspects, of course, to attaining Nibbana and what it is. But if you go back to the Four Noble Truths, which the Buddha is always doing, it is the elimination of craving is what the goal is. And by that goal, when you see the links, you see there's nobody in charge and you stop craving. Or you see that everything is suffering and you get off the wheel. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about, actually didn't even have it here, is forgiveness. People are always saying, well, where is forgiveness in the suttas? Well, I found a rather good article from Ajahn Jeff or Thanissaro Bhikkhu, and that is here. Let me see. This is, if you just search for Thanissaro Bhikkhu and forgiveness or reconciliation, right and wrong, you'll find this link. I think it's, well, I didn't put it here. But let's take a look at it. So this relates to monks, but of course it can relate to lay people as well. So here's a reading from a sutta. These two are fools. Which two? The one who doesn't see his or her transgression as a transgression, and the one who doesn't rightfully pardon another who has confessed his or her transgression. These two are fools. These two are wise. Which two? The one who sees his or her transgression as a transgression, and the one who rightfully pardons another who has confessed his or her transgression. These two are wise. That's from the Anguttara Nikaya. And let's see, well, actually, yeah. I'm not sure how this must be, yeah, Anguttara Nikaya. So from the Digha Nikaya, it says, it's a cause of growth in the Dhamma and Vinaya of the noble ones. When seeing a transgression as such, one makes amends in accordance with the Dhamma and exercises restraint in the future. So the commentary from Thanissaro Bhikkhu, the Buddha succeeded in establishing a religion that has been a genuine force for peace and harmony, not only because of the high value he placed on these qualities, but also because of the precise instructions he gave on how to achieve them through forgiveness and reconciliation. Central to these instructions is his insight that forgiveness is one thing, reconciliation is something else. The Pali word for forgiveness, kama, also means the earth. A mind like the earth is non-reactive and unperturbed. When you forgive me for harming you, you decide not to retaliate, to seek no revenge. You don't have to like me. You simply unburden yourself of the weight of resentment and cut the cycle of retribution that would otherwise keep us ensnarled in an ugly samsaric wrestling match. This is a gift you can give us both, totally on your own and without my having to know or understand what you've done. It doesn't matter what you've done, you just forgive it and let it go. So that's the forgiveness. Then the reconciliation, patisarana kama, means a return to amicability. And that requires more than forgiveness. It requires the reestablishing of trust. If I deny responsibility for my actions or maintain that I did no wrong, there's no way we can be reconciled. Similarly, if I insist that your feelings don't matter, whether you have no right to hold me to your standards of right and wrong, you won't trust me not to hurt you again. To regain your trust, I have to show my respect for you and for our mutual standards of what is and is not acceptable behavior. To admit that I hurt you and that I was wrong to do so, and to promise to exercise restraint in the future, to promise to exercise restraint in the future. At the same time, you have to inspire my trust too in the respectful way you conduct the process of reconciliation. Only then can our friendship regain a solid footing. So if you forgive somebody and they look at you and go, well, I didn't do anything wrong, or you overreacted, then the process isn't complete. It needs to be both of you come to an understanding in a true forgiving fashion, reconciling fashion, that forgiveness is, oh, look at this. Mirko has put in the reconciliation link in the chat. Thank you, Mirko. So you have to both agree. Now, in Bhante's practice, there is no other person because these things are all in the past. What we're talking about here are where monks get together and say at the end, during the Patimokkha, they forgive each other. And they're there and they all say that, you know, I forgive this monk who's done wrong. And that monk says, no, I won't do it again. You're right. I was wrong. And that's the end of that. And we're just going to move on. In forgiveness practice, there's nobody on the other side. So what we're doing is we're forgiving them for just not understanding what they did. We're assuming that they are reconciling with us. Maybe in real life they aren't, but we're going to forgive them for that too, so that we can move on. We just assume that they don't understand that they did something wrong and that they caused hurt, because if they were to say, well, we didn't do anything wrong, well, you were hurt. So there's wrong there. Whether it was something that they said that was just not appropriate at the time, it might have been true, but it wasn't the right thing to say. And they didn't understand that. So then you forgive them. Thus, there are right and wrong ways of attempting reconciliation. Those that skillfully meet these requirements for reestablishing trust, and those that don't. To encourage right reconciliation among his followers, the Buddha formulated detailed methods for achieving it, along with a culture of values that encourages putting those methods to use. The methods are contained in the Pali Vinayas instructions for how monks should confess their offenses to one another, how they should seek reconciliation with lay people they have wronged, how they should settle protracted disputes, and how a full split in the Sangha should be healed. Although directed to monks, these instructions embody principles that apply to anyone seeking reconciliation of differences, whether personal or political. The first step in every case is an acknowledgement of wrongdoing. When a monk confesses an offense, such as having insulted another monk, he first admits to having said the insult. Then he agrees that that insult really was an offense. Finally, he promises to restrain himself from repeating the offense in the future. A monk seeking reconciliation with a layperson follows a similar pattern, with another monk on friendly terms with the layperson acting as a mediator. If a dispute has broken the Sangha into factions that have both behaved in unseemly ways, then when the factions seek reconciliation, they are advised first to clear the air in a procedure called covering over with grass. Both sides make a blanket confession of wrongdoing and promise not to dig up each other's minor offenses. This frees them to focus on the major wrongdoings, if any, that caused or exacerbated the dispute. To heal a full split in the Sangha, the two sides are instructed first to inquire into the root intentions on both sides that led to the split. For if those intentions were irredeemably malicious or dishonest, reconciliation is impossible. If the group tries to patch things up without getting to the root of the split, nothing really has been healed. Only when the root intentions have been shown to be reconcilable and the differences resolved can the Sangha perform the brief ceremony that reestablishes harmony. Pervading these instructions is the realization that genuine reconciliation cannot be based simply on the desire for harmony. It requires a mutual understanding of what actions serve to create disharmony and a promise to try to avoid those actions in the future. This in turn requires a clearly articulated agreement about and a commitment to mutual standards of right and wrong. Even if the parties to a reconciliation agree to disagree, their agreement needs to distinguish between right and wrong ways of handling their differences. And that is, it is one good way is to just agree to disagree and let it go at that. Because we all do have our opinions of things, and they're opinions and views. It's a thicket of views, a trammel of views. I mean, we all think we're right, and you know that you're all wrong and I'm the only one that's right around here. So the Buddha admitted that not all disputes can be reconciled. There are times when one or both parties are unwilling to exercise the honesty and restraint that true reconciliation requires, even though forgiveness is still an option. That is why the distinction between reconciliation and forgiveness is so important. It encourages not to settle for mere forgiveness when the genuine healing of reconciliation is possible. And it allows us to be generous with our forgiveness, even when it is not. So there you go, forgiveness. I think there's quite a bit to consider about it. Forgiveness where we do it in our meditation, where there's only us, or forgiveness with people that we know and interact with. Anybody have any comments or anything?
David, seems like reconciliation needs much more than that, right? Like it's like both party has to agreed upon, and
yeah, it does.
Yeah, it's so forgiveness is a lot easier way out of your own mind trap. Yeah,
I think reconciliation, you can only do that with a group of people that all agree on the same principles, like the Sangha.
Yeah.
You can't necessarily reconcile with, just anybody, because they're going to have their view and they're going to think it's right. But the Sangha can go back to Vinaya and say, well, these are the rules here, so you can't really do that. So you can reconcile and say, well, this is the rule, and you misunderstood it, or you understood and you just did it wrong. And then the other person says, yeah, you're right. I did it wrong. I didn't understand it, and you reconcile.
Yeah.
But you can't go out into the world and start to reconcile with somebody who's completely of a different opinion, or somebody who comes up and, punches you or something like that. You can't say, well, why did you punch me? What made you do that? No, you'll probably get punched again. So, like, who are you trying to do? You just have to pick yourself up and agree that you're like the earth, like the forgiveness is karma, which is like the earth, unaffected. You get punched, you get, okay, I got punched, it's just a feeling. You get up and you walk away. You let it go. And then you send your bigger brother to get him. No, I would never do that. Okay, so that, I think I'm just gonna stop it right here. There's a little bit more we can talk about, but we've talked about enough, I think, for today. Any questions, comments, or?
Yes, David.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. Lately, we have a discussion about forgive and forget in terms of issue that happened. Okay, my first question is reconciliation. So reconciliation has to be done between the parties involved, right? It's not about like between like somebody who has their opinion or their forsated like a big righteousness of like what is being right and wrong. This is the first question. And the second question is because the discussion lately I had and that we are facing in my another group is about forgive and forget on the issue that has been the massacre in Beijing 32 years ago that happened in June 4th, and it brought forward some disputes and some stir up talks about like the Canadian indigenous people was also going through that in the past centuries. So it's all about opinions here, right? That we are saying that something is wrong, something is right, and then China's government is going back to the Canadian government of what's being wrong and what's being right. So there is this things that is going on, and then we have some people like raising voices. My question is that all this is not about us to actually discuss or comment. I mean, it is the reconciliation has to be done through time and through the people who got involved by themselves. Is that what it should be looked at? Because it stir up.
Yeah, well, I mean, unless you're part of the group, I don't think you can do any reconciliation.
Right.
You were not part of the group or the government, or you have to look at the first part is just forgive the whole process of happening. It happened and it's over. We look at the news and we just go into meltdowns and like, why is that happening? Well, why does this affect us so much? Because we're trying to control everything. Because we hear somebody doing something that we don't agree with, and we start yelling at the TV, and we say, well, no, you can't do that. That's just not right. Well, they're doing it. And the more that you try to stop it, and in most cases, you can't do anything. You're just yelling at the TV, and nobody cares that you're yelling at the TV. The more that you try to control things, the more suffering you cause to yourself. It's better to just see the news and the rest of the world as just a dream going by, because guess what? This is you. This is your karmic formations that are arising. You caused all this. This is all your fault. So you better forgive yourself for all of these problems that are occurring. It sounds like, well, wait, what? It's not my fault. Well, you were born in this place. Say you're living in Canada. Why is that? Your weather is this. Why is that? You eat this. Why is that? Why weren't you born in Alaska or as an Eskimo in an igloo? Your karmic formations had you born here, and all of these things are arising. Or I'm living here as a result of whatever I did, and the weather outside is sunny and it's windy and it's warm. And is that a result of my karmic formations arising? Well, it is arising. Something is arising. and I didn't have any control over it, and it just happened. So the more that I fight with reality, the more that I suffer. And so the more that you get into, who's right and who's wrong, and of course we have we certainly have our opinions of who's right and who's wrong in politics and news and all that kind of thing. Like I said, I mean, my opinion's the right one. So don't even, if you want to find out what's right, you can call me. I'm here available. And then we can argue if you want. And then we can forgive each other afterward. We can reconcile and say, well, let's just agree to disagree. Because I'm right anyway. So no, the thing is, just stop trying to control your world and accept your world as it is. And certainly things in the past, that's just gone. I mean, you had nothing. Unless you arranged the demonstration, how could you possibly, feel any responsibility or see that there's anything to worry about there? It wasn't you. So don't worry, be happy.
No, yeah, just because it was also another Dharma group that was getting into this discussion about like forgive and forget, and then the forget part was not like that they are agreeing that this is possibly without the reconciliation, because we totally understand it has to be reconciled, as you have just listed out what has been settled on the sutta. So I was hoping that there is some reference I can draw here from the teaching and the sutta, that as the allowance and the acceptance is not about like how some of us or part of like the whoever the bigger group, even what is going on around in my own city, like it's all about like the totalitarianism that is permeating into it, and then people have a very strong feeling against it, and all this create all these memories of the bad things, and it started to get more like a hatred and aversion, and all this is growing and growing bigger. So I was hoping that I was able to understand better myself, to be able to allow the seeing through it. So it's
well, I think you do. I think you do now.
Yeah.
And if you want to bring something to that group, then take that article over there and go through it with them in the chat. So Reconciliation, Right and Wrong by Thanissaro Bhikkhu. I think it's pretty good.
And I think
thank you.
Sorry, I think it's like forgiveness is just forgiveness. It doesn't say that it's you gotta forget that too. You don't really have to, right? Like once you forgive and then you let go of it, and they might come up. You don't need to forget. It might come up. You just keep doing it. And
yeah, you're right. Forgetting is controlling.
Yeah, forgetting is
pushing away. Yeah, forgetting is an action.
Yeah.
So you just accept it as the earth accepts anything. You can throw on it, do anything to it, and we do.
Yeah.
But it's
thank you, Ken. There's a good point there. It's action. No, we don't need to take action. Yeah, that's what is total acceptance. But thank you. Yeah, that's a very good point that for me. Okay, thank you. Got it.
Okay, good. Glad we got to that one.
Yeah. I have a question about meditation, because my before I'm new to this group, and before that, my idea of a meditation based on not knowing anything is that we are supposed to free our mind, and that and maybe concentrate on one thing, like breathing or something, in and out, and basically just free the mind. But based on your guidance earlier, you were leading us into a meditation which kept our mind active, right?
Yeah.
Because we are trying to recall going back, and
Yeah, that is an
and
active meditation. It's quite different than other meditations. So that's it. It's quite unusual for people to do that. It's a contemplation. It's a thinking meditation. Whereas most of what we do is loving kindness. We do some breath, but that's where you have an object and you're just focused on the object. But certainly past lives is it's a whole different style. So you're right.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Yeah, especially for a beginner, just do the loving kindness. I see.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
this isn't really for people who have not done any metta. It's really better that you work with metta and you get into the more advanced jhanas, and so you have some balance of mind.
Yeah.
Because we if you click back into a past life, that you killed somebody. I mean, if we have infinite past lives, we probably killed people, done horrible things, suffered horribly.
yeah.
What if we remember that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice that we were born into this life and we go, well, why can't we remember our past lives? Well, maybe we don't want to remember our past lives, not sure that's really helpful. So it's kind of a clean slate. So we can kind of be thankful for just starting over. And of course, now as a result of not remembering past lives, that creates ignorance. Ignorance of past lives means that we don't believe, many people don't believe in past lives. They don't believe that, this life is not just the end. Because if you believe that this life is just the end, then who cares about precepts? Who cares about anything? And in the suttas, there were the Avijakas. Yeah, I think something like that. And these people just had a great time. They danced and sang, and they didn't follow any precepts, and they did whatever the heck they wanted to. And the Buddha was asked, does he see any of these people ever getting into a heavenly realm? Where would they be born after this? And the Buddha said, in 92 eons of time, I have looked back at every person who has been this kind of person, a person that doesn't believe that there is future lives. They don't believe in the efficacy of action. They don't believe your actions have results. And 92 eons of time, those kind of people, they don't get reborn in heaven. They go to the lower realms because of wrong view and also many wrong actions. So because we're born into this life not knowing that we were in other lives, we're ignorant. And we have all kinds of ideas, and we can go around thinking, I can do anything and I'll just die, and and that's the end of that. Why bother doing all this meditation? I mean, geez, it's a waste of time. We could be doing other things, traveling here and there, and maybe robbing a bank or two to fund all that. But here we are practicing, meditating, following precepts, doing what's good. I mean, some people look at that and say, wow, what a waste of time. But we don't know that there are past lives. We don't know there's future lives. I don't know. I haven't experienced them, but I do know people who have, and I do know the suttas say that we have. So I'm just going to take this on belief and on faith, and that it is true. And you can also see in your meditation how each moment of consciousness is a life almost. So you can kind of see that too. But because of that, we continue to meditate and continue. Because at the end of our lives, in case that there is another life after this, we'll be ready. We will be ready. And if there isn't, well, there isn't. And it clicks off. But if there is, and we're not ready, well, we can get back into the Hell Realm presentation then. You don't want to go there.
the purpose of this past life meditation, the purpose of it is to reflect on what we have done right and what we have done wrong. It's not really to try and see what or where we were before we were born. Is
yeah,
that
but
right?
that's part of the technique to remember, to actually click back into your past lives to see that you had other past lives. We're just taking little baby steps here just to remember what we had for lunch yesterday. So we're working on our memory. We're improving it. So eventually it's strong enough to go back beyond this life. And then we start to really see, oh my God, there are past lives. And it's like, we had somebody here who remembered when he was born, and he came into the operating room, and his mother was having him, and he came out looking around, seeing all these fluorescent lights above, and he had this terrible feeling that he'd come to the wrong place, and somehow he'd taken the wrong door, and he didn't want to be here. And he actually had the ability to see his past lives during the meditation, and he would see like little visions of them, and then he could allow himself to just go into that vision and just look around and see who he was. And as a result, he didn't make much meditative progress because he was always stuck, looking at all of these things. Now, if he'd done it as a practice, he could have actually taken the TVJ route. But he just got kind of distracted by all of it. And finally, he just gave up and said, I'm tired of all this stuff. It's not that important. And it isn't. Past lives are not important. You don't need to think about them, worry about them. It's just something that's there. It's something you can do if you want.
So if we are born with a clean slate anyway, and there is a barrier to get back, to the past life in a way to protect us, right? Then how can we go past that barrier if we are starting on a clean slate?
Well, no, we're not. We're only starting with no memories. Our slate is full, but we just don't remember it. So what we're doing is we're developing our memory of that. It's not like a baby. A baby is born into the world with no, everything's fine and perfect. No, that's not true. Everybody brings their past karmic actions with them.
Oh, I see. So
we just don't know.
It's just that we are shielded from it. So we have to try and go into it. Is that right? So it exists, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it exists, but it's just that we are born to not remember it. So we have to make an effort to remember it. Is that right?
Well, it's a wise thing to remember that it existed. But, Bhante, for example, never talks about it. I mean, he talks about it a very tiny bit. And I'm only bringing it up just as a point of interest. I'm not expecting everybody to go and to do full, past lives meditation every day for the next month. No, it's just something you can play with if you want to. But the jhana practice, for most people, is really much faster. And a certain type of people that really can do the past lives, and there's probably not a lot of them. The intellectual types, people like to reason things out. It's probably not the right meditation for them.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Oh,
Yeah,
I just shared. There's a doctor. He passed away, but he's I think he's
oh, I see.
at the University of Virginia. He's a department
Dr. Stevenson.
he actually spent 40 years research over 3,000 children who remember their past.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. There are many cases of where if you're really young, you'll have a tendency to remember your last lifetime. There are kids that, they're 4, 5, 6, and they'll tell mom about Uncle Joe, who's actually died, but they were just with him in a past life. And the parents usually say, what are you talking about? There's nobody here by that. Just stop. And then it shuts them down. But kids are definitely open to that kind of thing. So if you have any kids and they say something, you go, oh, really? Tell me more about it. And let that skill develop and let them grow up and accept all of those things. So, oh, there's so much stuff. There's so much information about all of this. I mean, yeah, just Google all of the past lives or near-death experiences or all that kind of stuff. So much.
It seems like Kin was saying that the most she can remember is up to 5 years old or something, right?
Well, for
It's
now,
like there is a after a certain stage. For me, I really don't remember much, past 11, maybe, age 11.
yeah.
So if we keep trying, we can get back further and further.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, this guy remembered when he was born. So.
Yeah.
And it was clear. I mean, he knows the doctors, and it was very clear it was real. So. All right, I think that's enough for today. I gotta go, and thanks for coming.
Oh, thank you again,
Thank you.
David.
Thank you.
Okay.
There's a merit.
All right.
So you can come and share with me. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fears of fearless be. May the grieving that grieve him, may all beings find relief. May all beings take the merit that we have acquired all kinds of happiness. May in heaven, earth, Devas and Nagas almighty power share this merit of ours. May the Lord protect Buddha. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, David.
Thank
Thank you, everyone.
Welcome.
Thank you, Kate.
You're welcome.